Commander Lucas Hayes sat in the control room of Earth Station 1 and watched the universe come to him. The screen showed nothing at first, just empty space and the distant points of light that were stars. Then something changed. The sensors went wild. Something big was coming through the transit gate at the edge of the solar system. Hayes was a man of 60 years. He had gray hair and hard eyes. He had been in the military since he was 18 years old. He had fought wars on Earth, led soldiers, made decisions that killed people. Nothing scared him anymore. But what he saw on those screens now made his hands grip the armrest of his chair. 200 ships. Not 10 or 20. 200. They arranged themselves in the space around Jupiter with a precision that made the human military look like children playing with toys. The smallest of those ships was bigger than anything Earth had ever built. The largest ones were mountains of metal and light. Hayes knew what was coming. The United Earth Defense Council had been expecting this for 6 months. The first contact with the Interstellar Council had not gone well. The aliens had come, looked at human technology, and told the leaders of Earth that they were primitive. They had given humanity 6 months to prepare. For what, they did not say. Now Hayes knew. The communications officer, a young woman named Rachel Cooper, turned to Hayes. Her face was white. "Sir, they are sending a transmission. It is being broadcast to all Earth networks." "Put it through," Hayes said. His voice was calm, but his mind was working fast. He was thinking about his daughter Margaret on Mars. He was thinking about all the people in the colonies. He was thinking about Earth itself. The hologram flicked to life in the center of the room. The creature that appeared was not human. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, and its body looked like it was made of crystal or glass. It reflected the light in strange ways. Behind it were symbols that Hayes did not recognize. They belonged to other species, other civilizations that were old when humans were living in caves. The creature spoke in English. The aliens had learned the language fast. Too fast. They probably learned all human languages in a day or two. It did not matter. "I am Vexmuth of the Interstellar Council," the creature said. Its voice was deep and calm. It was the voice of someone who had never lost a war. "I bring you a simple message from the Council of 12. You have 14 days to surrender your technology, your military strength, and your sovereignty. You will place your world under the direct control of the Council. You will stop all space exploration. You will stop all weapons development. You will become a peaceful province of the Galactic Order." Hayes felt the words like punches. 14 days. The Council was not asking. They were telling. There was no room for negotiation. The hologram continued speaking. "We have monitored your species for 30 years, Vexmuth said. You have grown fast. Too fast. You build weapons. You spread through your solar system. This behavior is dangerous. You are like a child with fire. We must take the fire away. The Council has fought wars for millions of years. We've learned that young species must be controlled. You will be controlled. If you resist, we will eliminate you as we have eliminated other dangerous species. If you submit, you will be allowed to live. This is mercy. Accept this mercy." The hologram stopped. The transmission ended. The room was silent. Rachel Cooper looked at Hayes. Her hands were shaking a little. "Sir, what do we do?" Hayes stood up. He walked to the window and looked down at Earth. He could see the clouds over Africa. He could see the sun rising over the Pacific Ocean. He thought about the cities below. New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai. Billions of people living their lives, working, raising children, building the future. All of them now under a death sentence unless someone made the right choice in the next 14 days. "Send an emergency signal to all government leaders," Hayes said. United Nations, military commanders, everyone. We meet in 2 hours. Secure channels. This does not go public yet. 2 hours later, Hayes sat in a virtual meeting room with the leaders of Earth. They were connected through secure networks. The President of the United States was there. The Premier of China. The President of India. The heads of the African Union. The leaders of Europe. The military commanders of every major nation. Over 200 people, all watching each other through screens, all waiting for someone to speak first. It was Elena Rodriguez who spoke. She was a diplomat, 60 years old, and she had spent her life negotiating with hostile governments. She knew how to speak carefully. The Council's demand is clear, she said. We have 2 options. We accept, and we lose everything we have built in space. Our colonies, our bases, our ships. We become subjects of an alien government. Or we refuse, and they destroy us. There is no third option? Asked General Marcus Sullivan. He was the head of Earth's military space forces. He was a fighter. Hayes could hear the anger in his voice. The general did not like being threatened. The third option is to fight, said Dr. Aaron Foster. He was in the meeting from the research station near Saturn. He was an old man, maybe 80 years old, and he had been in space longer than anyone alive. We know they are stronger than us, but we also know something they do not know. They have not fought a young species. They have not fought a species with nothing to lose. Hayes listened to both sides argue. Some people said surrender was the only choice. Others said resistance was suicide. Hours passed. Arguments went in circles. Finally, Hayes spoke. We need to ask a different question, he said. Not can we win, but what do we become if we do not try? If we surrender now, we give up our future. We give up Mars. We give up the possibility that our children might one day be free. If we fight, we might lose. But at least we will have chosen our own fate. The room went quiet. We need to prepare, Hayes continued. We need to make them pay a price for this world. Not because we believe we will win, but because a free people does not beg for mercy. A free people stands and fights. If they want Earth, they will have to take it from us. General Sullivan nodded slowly. Elena Rodriguez had tears in her eyes, but she was also nodding. One by one, the leaders of Earth made their decision. Not to surrender, not to beg, but to prepare for war. By the end of the meeting, the order had gone out to every military base, every research facility, every engineer and scientist on Earth and in the colonies. They had 14 days to turn a peaceful exploration program into a military force. 14 days to build weapons. 14 days to prepare their world for invasion. Hayes remained in the control room for the rest of the night. He watched the Council fleet hold position at the edge of the solar system. 200 ships, all waiting for Earth's response. Below him, on the surface of Earth, in the cities and the factories and the laboratories, humans were already working. The race had begun. Earth did not have better weapons. Earth did not have more ships. But Earth had something the Council had never faced before. Earth had people with nothing left to lose. Earth had a species that understood desperation, that knew how to improvise, that would fight with teeth and nails and intelligence against an enemy 1,000,000 times stronger. In 14 days. The Interstellar Council would learn a lesson it should have learned long ago. Never underestimate the will of a free people facing extinction, because sometimes that will is worth more than all the weapons in the galaxy. The first factory to change its purpose was in Ohio. It had been making car parts for 20 years. By the morning after the Council's ultimatum, armed soldiers were standing at every entrance. Workers who arrived for their normal shift found out that their jobs had changed. They would not be making cars anymore. They would be making weapons. Dr. Lisa Chen stood in the research facility above Earth orbit and looked at the data that her team had been collecting for months. The Council had allowed Earth to study their transmission signals. It was an arrogant gift, meant to show humanity how far behind they were. But Lisa Chan was a physicist, and physicists looked at data and asked questions. "Here," she said to her team, pointing at a specific pattern in the Council transmission. "See this frequency modulation? It is not efficient. In fact, it is wasteful. They use this same pattern in their shield generators, their communication arrays, their navigation systems. It is elegant, but it has a weakness." A young engineer named Kevin Morrison looked at the screen and did not see it at first. Then, slowly, his eyes went wide. "That means their systems are all connected. If we could disrupt one frequency band, we could potentially disrupt all of them." "Yes," Lisa Chen said. "We cannot build better weapons than they have. But we can build weapons that think differently. Weapons that are adaptive. Weapons that can learn and change. The Council's technology is old and perfect. Our technology is young and flexible. We use that." By day 3, every space facility in Earth's orbit was being transformed into a weapons platform. The mining stations in the asteroid belt were being converted to ammunition factories. The manufacturing plants on Mars were building drone fighters. The research stations were designing programs that could fight without orders from Earth. Autonomous weapons. Thinking weapons. Things the Council had never seen before because they did not believe young species could create them. General Marcus Sullivan ran the Military Coordination Center from the USS Constellation, a cargo ship that had been turned into a command ship. He had no training for this. Nobody did. This was not a war like wars on Earth. This was a war across millions of kilometers of space, with battles that would be fought by machines and by people who would never see their enemies. "We cannot match them ship for ship," Sullivan told his commanders. "They have 200 ships. We have 30. They have weapons that have been perfected over millions of years. We have weapons we designed last week. So we do not fight like they fight. We fight like we are alive and desperate and willing to die." He brought up the map of the solar system. Red dots showed human military positions. Blue dots showed where the Council fleet waited. "The Council fleet came through that gate," Sullivan said, pointing. "They will have to move inward toward Earth. They cannot just destroy the planet from where they are because that would waste resources. They will try to occupy. They will send smaller groups to take each space station. They will try to force surrender by taking our colonies one by one. That is where we attack. We make each colony expensive. We make each victory cost them ships and soldiers. We make them bleed." By day 7, the first batch of drone fighters was ready. They were small, fast, and they carried programming that let them work together without waiting for orders. A human pilot could fly 10 of them, or 20. The pilot's job was not to fly the drone. The job was to guide it, to make the big decisions, and let the drone's computer handle the rest. Manufacturing plants across Earth that had been closed or half empty were now running 24 hours a day. People worked in shifts. Some people did not go home at all. They worked until they collapsed, and then they were replaced. The entire human economy had been turned toward one goal: survival. Governor Patricia Walsh stood in a broadcast studio in New York and prepared to address the world. She had been waiting to do this since the Council's ultimatum came through. Now, on day 8, it was time to tell humanity the truth. "The Interstellar Council has given us a choice," she said. Her voice was steady and clear. "We can submit or we can fight. The government of Earth has chosen to fight. But we cannot do this alone. We need every person. We need engineers and workers and soldiers. We need scientists and farmers and doctors. We need people who are willing to sacrifice their comfort, their safety, maybe their lives, for the chance that humanity will remain free. The response was not the panic or despair that some had feared. Instead, it was unity. People volunteered for military service. Engineers stayed at their workstations through the night. Scientists worked without sleep to develop new weapons designs. It was as if all the divisions that normally separated humanity, all the wars and conflicts of the past, had suddenly fallen away. They were not Americans or Chinese or Indians. They were human. And humanity was threatened. On day 10, Lisa Chun brought her latest design to General Sullivan. It was a small computer, no bigger than a hand, but it contained something revolutionary. It was a thinking system, a network that could communicate with thousands of drones, thousands of ships, thousands of weapons, and coordinate them all without waiting for orders from humans. It is not conscious, Chun explained carefully, but it is adaptive. It can learn from battle. It can anticipate enemy movements. It is a weapon that evolves as it fights. Sullivan held the device in his hand and felt the weight of it. This small thing might be the difference between human freedom and human extinction. How fast can we build them? 50 a day, Chun said. Maybe more if we push. We can network them together so they all share what they learn. By day 12, the space around Earth was beginning to look different. Where there had been peaceful research stations and mining operations, now there were military platforms. Where there had been cargo ships, now there were warships. The solar system was being turned into a trap, a maze of death for anyone stupid enough to try to conquer it. Commander William Porter flew one of the new fighter drones. He'd been a pilot in the old wars on Earth with planes and missiles. This was different. This was faster and colder. But it was still flying, and flying was something Porter understood. Formation check, he called to the other pilots in his wing. Sound off. One by one, the pilots reported. 12 human pilots, each controlling 12 drones. 144 machines ready to fight. It was not much compared to the Council's fleet, but it was something. It was human defiance turning into hardware and software and fuel. On day 13, Hayes called Sullivan to his office. The Council transmitted another message, I said. They asked if we were preparing for war. I told them yes. I told them we were not going to submit, that we were going to fight. Sullivan nodded. What did they say? Nothing, Hayes said. They just went silent. I think they are confused. I think they have never faced an enemy that chose to fight instead of surrender. They do not know how to respond. That night, across the solar system, across Earth and Mars and the asteroid belt and the space stations, humans prepared for war. Not because they believed they would win, but because surrender meant losing everything their species had fought to build. Surrender meant the end of the future. Tomorrow, the Council fleet would move inward. Tomorrow, the killing would start. But tonight, on the final night of the 14-day ultimatum, humanity stood ready. Not as a unified world government, not as a military machine, but as a species that had decided to be free, no matter the cost. The Council fleet moved at dawn. Not Earth dawn, but the moment when the solar system decided to go to war. The 200 ships accelerated inward toward Earth, moving at speeds that made human physics look like ancient history. They did not rush. They did not need to. They were inevitable. They were the law of the galaxy, written in metal and light. Vexmoth stood in the command center of the Council, flagship, and watched the human defenses on his screens. They were pathetic. 30 military ships, now reinforced with some kind of drone swarm technology that was primitive but showed an unexpected level of adaptation. There were also weapons platforms around the planet and the colonies. It was the effort of a young species trying to fight something that was ancient and strong. It was like a child throwing stones at a mountain and believing the mountain would fall. "They have ignored our ultimatum," Vexmoth said to the other council commanders gathered in the strategic chamber. "This is the final verification. We are authorized to neutralize the threat." One of the other commanders, a being made of metallic liquid that could take any shape, spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through metal. "Chancellor, the human adaptation rate is unusual. Their drone technology shows signs of rapid development. Perhaps we should proceed with caution." Vexmoth turned and looked at this commander. The look held absolute certainty. "We have faced civilizations millions of years old. We have fought wars that lasted centuries. These humans are 30 years into space travel. They are developing weapons that might be effective against each other. Against us, they are insects. We will make this quick and ended." He gave the command, and the council fleet split into 3 groups. One group would take the Mars colonies. Another would secure the asteroid belt and the mining stations. The third would move directly toward Earth and establish orbit. It was a strategy based on millennia of conquests. It was a strategy that had never failed. It failed immediately. As soon as the council ships began to move, human pilots activated their drones. Commander William Porter was flying in a fighter named the Nightingale, and he had direct control of 12 drone fighters. The drones were small and fast, and they were not alone. Across the solar system, other pilots activated their own drone swarms. 144 machines, all coordinated through Lisa Chun's adaptive network, all sharing information about what they saw and learned in real time. The first Council destroyer saw the drone swarm on its sensors and did not consider it a serious threat. It opened fire with its primary weapons. Those weapons had destroyed civilizations. They had vaporized planets. Surely they could destroy some small machines. The drones responded by not being where the weapons wanted them to be. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually perfect. They split apart and came together and split again. Some drones were destroyed, but the others kept coming. They attacked from angles that made no military sense, except to the adaptive program that was thinking about the battle, learning from every moment, updating its strategy in microseconds. The first Council destroyer suffered a critical failure in its left shield generator. It had no idea how it happened. Nothing on that destroyer's combat records showed anything like this attack pattern. Then it started losing other systems. Communications went down. Navigation failed. The destroyer was suddenly blind and silent, tumbling through space like a dead thing. "They got a destroyer," Sullivan's voice came through Porter's helmet. His words sounded shocked. "We actually killed one." "Stay focused," Porter said. He was actually fighting, against an impossible enemy, and his mind had gone cold and clear. This was what he was built for, what humans were built for. This moment when you had to make choices in microseconds and live or die based on those choices. There are 30 of them. We have just started. The battle became chaos. Not chaotic in the sense of being disorganized. It was chaos in the sense of being unpredictable and alive and wild. Human pilots, connected through the network, made decisions that fed information back to other pilots instantly. When Porter saw something work, it was transmitted to all the other pilots. When another pilot found a weakness in Council tactics, it spread like fire through the human forces. A Council battlecruiser tried to use its superior firepower to destroy a human fighter group. The human fighters did not stand and fight. They scattered, split up into smaller groups, and came at the battlecruiser from 4 different directions at once. The battlecruiser's weapons were designed to destroy large targets. Against a swarm, they were too slow, too heavy, too predictable. 3 human fighters got through, and their weapons primitive by Council standards, found exactly the right spots to cause the maximum damage. The battlecruiser lost power to its primary engines. It began to lose altitude toward the sundawn. By the second day of fighting, the Council fleet had lost 37 ships. They had killed approximately 9,000 human soldiers and destroyed hundreds of human fighters and drones. By any mathematical calculation, the Council should still be winning. The gap in losses was moving in the Council's favor, but something was happening that mathematics did not account for. Desperation, determination, the will of a species fighting for its continued existence. Admiral Catherine Wright commanded one of the last human military stations, and she was flying in a fighter named the Storm. She had been a military pilot for 30 years, and she had never seen anything like the way these Council ships fought. They were predictable, not because they were stupid, but because they were old. They fought the same way because that way had worked for millions of years. They did not expect an enemy to come at them from a direction that made no strategic sense, even though it made perfect sense if you understood desperation. "They are regrouping," Wright said to her pilots. "The group moving on Earth is consolidating near Jupiter. They are preparing for their final push. This is where we hurt them the most." The third human attack was not a military victory. By any measure, it was a disaster. Human losses were devastating. Entire fighter wings were destroyed. Research stations were bombarded. But before the Council could press their advantage, they had to stop, because they were bleeding too much. The price of victory was becoming too high. Vexmoth looked at the casualty reports and felt something he had not felt in 6,000 years. It was not fear, but it was close. The humans were not winning, but they were making it so expensive to lose that the victory was starting to look like a loss. "Chancellor," one of the commanders said, "we have communications from 3 minor species requesting emergency mediation. They are expressing concern about the level of military force required to pacify a young species." Vexmoth understood what was really being communicated. Other civilizations were watching. They were seeing a species that had been supposed to be extinct still fighting. They were seeing the Council's certainty cracking, and they were wondering if they too could stand up to the Council's power. "We need to change our approach," the metallic commander said. "This is no longer about simple occupation. This is becoming about maintaining Council authority." Vexmoth looked at the map of the battle. Hundreds of human ships destroyed, but also dozens of Council ships destroyed or damaged beyond repair. And the humans were still fighting, still adapting, still finding new ways to hurt the ancient power of the Interstellar Council. "Send a transmission to the human commanders," Vexmoth said. "Tell them that we are willing to discuss cessation of hostilities." It was not surrender, but it was not victory either. It was the moment when the ancient galaxy realized that the future did not belong to them anymore. The future belonged to the ones who were desperate enough to fight, innovative enough to adapt, and willing to die for the possibility of freedom. The 10th day of battle brought the war to a turning point that neither side had predicted. The Council fleet had lost over 80 ships. The human forces had lost over 700 fighters and drones. And more importantly, the humans had lost the ability to replace them. The factories on Earth could not work fast enough. The workers were exhausted. The supplies were running low. Commander Lucas Hayes stood in the command center of Earth Station 1 and looked at the battle reports. He knew what the numbers meant. Humanity was losing. Not today or tomorrow, but within a few days, the Council's superior numbers would overwhelm the human defense. The war was going to end, not with a human victory, but with human extinction. "How long do we have?" he asked General Sullivan. Sullivan looked at the screens and did not answer for a long time. Finally, he said, 4 days. Maybe 5. After that, we do not have the capacity to defend all the colonies and Earth at the same time. Hayes nodded. He had known this was coming. The moment of truth, when all the preparation and sacrifice would not be enough to change the outcome. It was the moment when hope died. But Hayes had lived a long life, and he knew that sometimes, in the moment when hope dies, something else is born. Something harder. Something more dangerous. "Send a transmission to Vexmoth," Hayes said. "Tell him I want to talk. Not about surrender. About negotiation." Sullivan looked at Hayes as if he had gone crazy. "We have nothing to negotiate with, sir. We are losing. That is exactly why we can negotiate," Hayes said. "They have everything to gain by destroying us. But we have something they do not have anymore." "What?" Sullivan asked. "The ability to make them question themselves," Hayes replied. The transmission went out across the solar system. Within minutes, Vexmoth responded. The Council commander would speak with the human commander. Not on a neutral station, because no neutral station existed, but through secure communication channels. The hologram of Vexmoth appeared in Hayes' office. The alien looked different than he had in the first transmission. He looked tired. His crystal exoskeleton had cracks in it from damage he had suffered in the battle. His movements were slower, more deliberate. "You wish to surrender," Vexmoth stated. "No," Hayes said clearly. "I wish to speak to you about cost." Vexmoth's expression did not change, but Hayes could see that the alien was interested. "Explain." Hayes took a breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on saying this exactly right. "You came to take Earth because you believed we were a threat. You were right. We are a threat, but not because of our weapons. We are a threat because we are alive. We do not accept domination. We do not accept submission. We fight. And when we fight, we make others want to fight with us." Hayes turned and brought up a display. It showed the messages that had been coming in over the past few days. Messages from 3 different minor species. All of them expressing concern about the military force required to defeat humanity. All of them asking why the Council needed so many ships to destroy a young species. All of them beginning to wonder if they too could resist. "If you destroy us," Hayes continued, "you do it at tremendous cost. You lose 80 ships, 90 ships, maybe 100 ships. And every other species in your sphere of influence sees that. They see the Interstellar Council's invincibility is not invincible. They see that the price of resistance is lower than they thought. They wonder if they should pay that price. The cost of occupying Earth will be cheap compared to the cost of dealing with the rebellions that will follow." Vexmoth was silent for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. It was not the voice of absolute certainty anymore. It was the voice of someone making a decision in the face of doubt. "What do you propose?" he asked. "Negotiation," Hayes said. "Not surrender. Negotiation. We gain membership in the Interstellar Council, not as a subject species, but as an equal. We keep our sovereignty. We keep our military. We keep our right to explore space. In exchange, we agree to peaceful cooperation and trade with the Council. You keep the stability you claim to want. We keep our freedom. Everyone survives." "The Council would never agree to such terms," Vexmoth said. But he said it as if he was thinking out loud, not as if it was a statement of fact. "Perhaps not," Hayes agreed. "But you can propose it. And the other Council members will remember that you offered peace when you could have demanded victory. That is power too. Different power, but more lasting." Dr. Lisa Chun appeared on a secondary communication channel. "Chairman Vexmoth, I am Lisa Chun, Chief Physicist of Earth's Military Research Division. I have information that might be useful to your decision." She brought up data showing the Council's own technical vulnerabilities. Weaknesses in the frequency modulation systems that powered everything from shield generators to navigation systems. Things that the Council had designed 1,000,000 years ago and had never needed to change. Things that a young species, desperate and innovative, had found in days. If this war continues, Chun said, we will not win militarily, but we will continue to find these weaknesses. We will continue to adapt and improve. In 5 years, our weapons will be much more advanced. In 10 years, we might be able to kill your ships as easily as you are killing ours now. Is that something you want to risk? Vexmoth looked at the data, and something changed in him. It was not fear, but it was respect. It was the acknowledgement that humanity had something valuable, something that could not be learned in 1,000,000 years of studying old knowledge, but only found through the desperate improvisation of a species fighting for survival. I will bring your proposal to the Council, Vexmoth said. I cannot promise anything, but I will bring it. In the meantime, we will hold our current positions. Fighting will pause. The hologram disappeared, and Hayes sat back in his chair. He did not know if he had just saved humanity or simply delayed the inevitable. But he knew he had done something. He had made the Council think. He had made them question. And in that moment of doubt, there was a possibility. General Sullivan came into the office. Sir, the fighting has stopped. The Council fleet is holding position. They are not attacking. I know, Hayes said. They are thinking. And while they are thinking, we continue to work. We continue to plan. We continue to prepare for whatever comes next. Within hours, the news spread across human colonies and military bases. The fighting had stopped. Humans were still alive. Earth was still free. It was not a victory, but it was a reprieve. And a reprieve, when facing extinction, was enough to let hope be born again down in the Council's flagship. Vexmoth looked at the battle data one more time and made a decision. He would propose the negotiation, not because he believed Earth deserved it, but because a species that could learn this fast, that could innovate this well, that could refuse to surrender even when surrender was logical, was exactly the kind of species the Council needed to understand, not destroy. The galaxy was changing. The ancient age of the Council's certainty was ending, and the age of something new, something younger and more desperate and more alive, was beginning. Vexmoth was old enough and wise enough to recognize a turning point in history. He had just lived through one. The neutral station was built in the space between Earth and the Moon, far enough that neither side could launch a surprise attack, but close enough that both sides could see the other's military presence. It was old, built during the early years of human space exploration, and it had been a scientific research facility. Now it was transformed into a place where the future of two civilizations would be decided. Commander Lucas Hayes arrived with a small delegation. Elena Rodriguez was there, the diplomat who had helped convince Earth's leaders to fight. Dr. Aaron Foster came, the oldest human in space, who had pushed for this moment when negotiations still seemed impossible. Dr. Lisa Chun attended, bringing technical documents that explained human capabilities. General Sullivan remained in orbit, commanding the human military forces, ready for war if the negotiations failed. Vexmoth arrived with his delegation. Other members of the Interstellar Council came as well, beings of crystal and metal and energy, creatures that had conquered civilizations, that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They had come to see what this young species wanted badly enough to fight the most powerful military force in existence. The negotiations took 3 days. The first day was difficult. The Council wanted to impose restrictions on human development. No weapons above a certain power level. No ships capable of traveling beyond the solar system without Council permission. Mandatory Council inspectors on all military bases. Hayes rejected every proposal, not with anger, but with calm certainty. If you want us to submit, we are willing to fight to extinction, he said. But we will not submit. We have proven we are willing to die for our freedom. Do you really want to spend the resources to destroy us when we can be partners instead? The metallic commander, whose name was Zixtal, became interested in Hayes's proposal. You speak of partnership. But you are primitives. What could you possibly offer that will be worth granting you sovereignty? Innovation, Lisa-chan answered. The future. The council is old, and you have been successful for so long that you have stopped thinking about how to change. Humans are new, and we change everything. We change constantly. We adapt to any situation. In time, humans will be useful to the council in ways you cannot predict right now, but only if you let us be free to develop on our own terms. On the second day, the council made its first real concession. They would grant Earth full membership in the Interstellar Council, not as a subject species, but as a voting member with one seat in the council chamber. This meant Earth could propose laws and policies, could negotiate trade agreements, could be an equal in the eyes of the galaxy. But they still wanted restrictions on human military development. We cannot allow an unlimited arms race, Vexmoth explained. Young species that develop weapons too fast tend towards self-destruction. We offer this restriction out of protection, not domination. Elena Rodriguez smiled slightly. Then offer it as partnership. We will allow inspection of our military facilities. We will agree to trade restrictions on certain weapons types. We will work with the Council to ensure that human development is sustainable. But we will not accept limits on our sovereignty. We will be the ones to decide what technologies we develop. You will be the ones who trust us to make the right decisions. This was the breakthrough. The word partnership instead of restriction. The idea that the Council was being asked to trust humanity, not control it. Vexmoth found himself wanting to agree. This young commander understood something that most of the Council had forgotten. That trust, offered freely, was more powerful than control, imposed by force. On the third day, the agreement was signed. Earth was granted full membership in the Interstellar Council. Human military forces would be allowed to maintain their current size. Trade agreements were established that would allow human technology to be shared with other species. In exchange, humans agreed to cooperate with the Council on matters of galactic security and agreed to open their military facilities to periodic Council inspections. But the most important part of the agreement was not written in the official document. It was understood by both sides. The Interstellar Council had been challenged and had found that they were not invincible. Humanity had fought against impossible odds and had survived. The galaxy would never be quite the same again. Hayes stood with Vexmoth in the observation chamber of the neutral station, looking out at the vast darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Earth waiting. Somewhere, his daughter Margaret was watching on Mars, hoping that her father's gamble would pay off. Your species will cause trouble in the Council, Vexmoth said. It was not a threat. It was an observation. Probably, Hayes agreed. We will ask questions you do not want to answer. We will propose ideas that challenge your way of thinking. We will refuse to accept that something cannot be done just because it has never been done before. But we will also be loyal partners. We will not betray the Council. We will not abuse the power you have given us. We will try to make the galaxy better in our own way, with our own methods. I hope you are right, Vexmoth said. Because if you are wrong, I have just helped create something that may one day challenge the Council's authority itself. Maybe, Hayes said. But that is the risk of trusting young species. They grow. They change. They become more than they were. That is not a weakness. That is the future. As Hayes returned to the constellation, he thought about the battle that had just ended. Thousands of humans had died. Hundreds of ships had been destroyed. The solar system bore the scars of war. But Earth was still free. Earth was still independent. Earth had won not through military superiority, but through the will to survive, the ability to adapt, and the willingness to negotiate with honor. Dr. Lisa Chan waited for him in the command center. "Sir, we have a transmission from Margaret. She watched the agreement signing from Mars. She said to tell you that everyone there is crying and laughing at the same time." Hayes closed his eyes for a moment. Then he smiled. "Send her a message. Tell her that we are coming home. Tell her that humans are not subjects or servants or conquered peoples. We are a free species, and we earned our freedom the hard way." Governor Patricia Walsh addressed the world from the surface of Earth. Her image was broadcast to every human settlement across the solar system. People gathered in cities and colonies to hear what their leader had to say. "3 weeks ago, the Interstellar Council ordered us to submit," Walsh said. "Today, I can tell you that we did not submit. We fought. We bled. We suffered. But we survived. Earth is now a full member of the Interstellar Council, and we earned that membership by refusing to accept domination." The broadcast cut to images of Mars, the asteroid belt, the orbital stations, all filled with humans celebrating. Not celebrating victory in the way humans celebrated wars on Earth, but celebrating something deeper. The celebration of a species that had chosen freedom, had paid for it with sacrifice, and had found that the price was worth paying. In the depths of space, around the sun that had nurtured human life, the Council fleet and the human fleet held position, not as enemies anymore, but not quite as friends either. They were partners now, bound together by the understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing was not superior weapons, but the will to survive and the courage to choose freedom, even when the cost was everything. Commander Hayes looked out at the stars and thought about the future. It would be difficult. Humans and the Council would have conflicts. There would be disagreements about how to develop, how to expand, how to interact with other species. But for the first time in human history, those conflicts would happen as equals. Not as a conquered species begging for mercy, but as a young civilization that had proven it could stand against the powers of the galaxy and not be broken. Earth had been offered a choice, and Earth had chosen to fight. In that choice, the fate of the entire galaxy had shifted. The age of the Council's absolute authority was ending. The age of human determination, human innovation, and human hope was beginning. And somewhere in the void between worlds, the laughter of humanity echoed across the stars. A sound that the ancient galaxy had never heard before. The sound of a free people, young and alive and willing to face any challenge that the universe could throw at them. The Interstellar Council had ordered humanity to submit. Earth had laughed, and in that laughter was the birth of something new,